He who is without attachment, who does not rejoice when he obtains good, nor lament when he obtains evil, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Text 58 in unison. Yada sangharate chayang kurmo nanganiva sarvashaha indriyan indriyartebhyas tasya pragya pratishtita. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. Text 59. Vishaya vinavartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjang rasopyasya parang drishva nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Sanskrit in unison. Yatato yapi konteya purushayasya vipashchitaha nindriyani pramatini haranti prasabam manaha. Translation in unison. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Text 61. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matvaraha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. One who restrains his senses and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. Sanskrit. Text 62. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho bijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. Text 63. Krodhat bhavati sangmoha, sangmohat smriti vibramaha, smriti vrangsha buddhinasho, buddhinasha pranashyati. From anger, delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. When intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Text 64 in unison. Ragadesha vimukhtaistu vishayan indriyaischaran atmavaishar vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. Translation in unison. One who can control his senses by practicing the regulated principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord, and thus become free from all attachment and aversion. Text 65. Prasade sarvadukhanam hanir asyopajayate prasanna chetaso yashu buddhi pravashtitashtate. For one who is so situated in the divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, one's intelligence soon becomes steady. Text 66. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya nachayuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shantir ashantasya kuta sukham. One who is not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Text 67, final text. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano nuvidhiyate tad asya harati pragyam vayurnavam avambasi. As a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. So it's confusing, but that was 11 verses. So let us actually go back to text 57, page 140. And we'll read the translation. He who is without attachment, who does not rejoice when he obtains good, nor lament when he obtains evil, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Purport. There is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there is always the possibility of good and evil, because this world is full of duality. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil, because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good, absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in a perfect transcendental position called, technically, samadhi. So sometimes we find ourselves on one side or another of some upheaval or some sort of agitation. And this world is full of duality, so there'll always be some ups and downs. This was also mentioned a little bit earlier that in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, text 14, that there's Shitoshna Sukha Dukkha Daha Agama Paino Nityas. So Agama Paino Nityas means appearing and disappearing, happiness and distress, which comes and goes like the winter and summer seasons. So good and evil come and go. There's also another verse in Bhagavad Gita which says, Sada Sad Yoni Janmasu, that we experience birth in different wombs, and we experience some good and bad. Sad, which is translated as some good thing, and asad, yoni, wombs, janmasu, that we're actually born in different wombs to experience some ups and downs. So these things are there. One time, Srila Prabhupada went to his guru, and this was on their first meeting. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told Srila Prabhupada that you're an intelligent young boy. You should preach Lord Chaitanya's message in the English language. And Prabhupada kind of put a little challenge to Bhaktisiddhanta that, well, who will listen to our message, because we are subjugated by the British. And Prabhupada describes that he was happy to be defeated by his spiritual master. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was describing that, these different parties may come and go. There's always some party which is overtaking the other, dissatisfied with the other party's program of usually sense gratification in the case of modern leaders. One group is saying, I want this sense gratification. The other group says, I want it that way. So they throw each other again and again, and this is just natural. So Prabhupada was happy to be defeated and understand that this message of Sanatana Dharma, this is the eternal welfare work. This is the real message which transcends all temporary, ups and downs that we may experience. So whoever's in power, they may be oppressing the people, or they may be giving benefits to the people, whatever it may be, but one group is experiencing some pleasure, another group is experiencing some pain, and then vice versa. It always flips. They all need Krishna consciousness. All of us, we need Krishna consciousness. So one who becomes transcendental, or one who is not attached to either or, is in Krishna consciousness.
I have an example Prabhupada gave. That a good businessman, he always knows how to make a profit, whether the market's up or down. If the market's up, he sells his shares, gets money, profit. And the market's down, he buys. So in all circumstances, he goes on with his profit making. He's expert. Somebody, a devotee, he knows how to spread Krishna consciousness. In so-called good situation, favorable, and sometimes some kind of unfavorable, he also knows what to do. So this is the idea how one can. He knows how to make advancement. He knows how to spread Krishna consciousness in all circumstances to the best possible. He doesn't think he's the controller, but he tries his best in all circumstances.
Yeah, that was like Bhakta Avatar today. It was very cold, but still he was doing books. And so this is nice that, either way the devotee takes everything as Krishna's mercy. We were hearing in yesterday's Gita reading that one who's fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. So the devotee's taking whatever comes. That's Krishna's will. And Krishna has goodwill for everyone. Yeah, somebody was asking me today, a nice devotee named Supreet. He's from Ohio. And Bhaktavatar got to meet him a couple times. And he was asking me that, why do we have to suffer here? And so, more or less, we have the opportunity to be in the spiritual world, but besides those very merciful, liberated souls, we choose to be here. More or less, we let some envy enter our heart, and we decided to try to be the controller, which is contrary to the reality. And it started out, we got a good opportunity to get purified of that envy in the post of Lord Brahma. But sometimes we associate with persons who, kind of rub on us in the opposite direction. And we get some other material desires. And so then we go and go. And so more or less, when we're here, Krishna describes this place as dukkhalayam ashashvatam, temporary, or full of miseries and temporary place. So the dualities are always there. And because of that, we're always dissatisfied. So the question was, why are we forced to suffer like this? And more or less the answer is that's a mercy. That's mercy from Krishna. But one devotee says, suffering is, I think he was saying, suffering is kind. It comes from Krishna. That when we're suffering, that's actually a nice blessing, because that's Krishna's will for us. Sometimes it's hard to swallow that. One devotee was telling me today that he was completely destroyed. Literally, he's done. Super smashed. Finished. I mean, really. And saying all there is Krishna's service, the devotees, So he said that it's Krishna's mercy that I feel this way now. But it's pretty hard to see it that way.
I miss it. You smashed what? Materially? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Materially you smashed.
It's materially smashed.
Oh, okay.
That he's learned, that he's been chewed up and spit out more than he can handle. So that was his determination now, is that he just wants to give his full time and energy for Krishna's service. But he was saying that, it's not easy to see it as Krishna's mercy, even though he knows that it is. So maybe I can read another text now, text 58. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. Purport. The test of a yogi, devotee, or self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of the senses and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi, or the devotee, must be very strong to control the serpents. Like a snake charmer, he never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do-nots, and some of them are do's, unless one is able to follow the do's and the do-nots. Restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up his senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purposes. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious persons are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise, who keeps the senses within. The word for tortoise in Spanish is tortuga. It's a nice word. There's actually a very famous creature, which is one of the oldest reptiles on the planet. And there's a place called Galapagos. It's a set of islands in Ecuador. It's near Ecuador on the coast. And it's a very large tortoise. It has like a huge back. It's pretty cool. And it has really long limbs. You know, it's kind of weird. And they're really old. It's like some upwards of 150 years. Of course, they're going extinct, more or less. But that's what I think about when I read this verse, is that big tortoise. And how did they live so long? Because they have this ability. You know, they have a special kind of mystical power. So the yogis, they also have that. Prabhupada brings up this example that the snakes are, the senses are like serpents, which are venomous. And so it's interesting because the yogi is situated within the body, which is more or less made of senses, but the senses are actually the enemy of the yogi and are very deadly to the very person. And like Krishna describes in the Gita, that we're, I think it's Shastra Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karshati. What's the first part of that? Yes, Mana Shastra Indriyani, something like that, right? So the mind and the six senses, which include the mind. The living entity is actually struggling with these. I think that's the Mamai Vangsho Jivaloke. So the living entities are Krishna's part and parcels, and that are in this material world, us, and we're struggling hard with the six senses, which include the mind. And so these senses are, and Krishna also describes that mind can be worse enemy and also a friend if we train the mind. And also that that the senses are grouped around the mind, and each individual person receives a set of senses according to their karma, which are basically according to their own desire to enjoy material world in a certain way. We get a set of senses which are grouped about the mind. So it's interesting because these are actually the enemies of the yogi or the spiritualist or the Sanatanist or the self-realized soul, the devotee. And as Maharaj was mentioning, I think it was yesterday, Maya wants us to more or less lay down our weapons and fold to, these serpents and just follow the urges, which will always be there until
next verse.
Okay.
Next verse describes it. What happens? How to get free.
Yes, Gurudev. So text 59. Vishaya vinavartante nidahara sidehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Purport. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc. is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge, but one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna. In the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness, no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the advancement of spiritual life, but such restrictions are only good if one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. There's a really wonderful verse. Prabhupada quotes it in the Gita. I know it in a certain way. Yadavadi mama cheta Krishna padara vinde nava nava rasa daman yudyatam rantum asit tadavati bhattanari sangaman smaryamane bhavati mukha vikara sisti nishti vanamcha susti nishti vanamcha. There may be some errors there. I'm not sure if it's very proper pronunciation, but basically that Yamuna Acharya says, Sri Yamuna Acharya says that ever since being engaged in the loving service of Krishna, at the lotus feet of Krishna serving, then he's actually experiencing newer and newer pleasure, nava nava rasa, newer and newer mellows, newer and newer pleasure in that service. And whenever the mind actually goes to sense gratification with the opposite sex, then Yamunacharya feels that his mouth curls in disgust, and he actually spits at that contemplation. So actually, we were hearing yesterday that the devotee becomes steady at some point by getting this higher taste, by just sticking with the process. But his mind may still go, but he says, that's my mind. That's my mind going there. I won't go there. Because actually my real pleasure is in service to Krishna. So this is important that we engage in the process of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master. That will give us the higher taste. And when we get the higher taste, then we won't be obligated to answer the demands of the senses. And actually, at a certain point, we think, I have something so much nicer. Doesn't make any logical sense for me to go for the lower pleasure anyway, because this pleasure is actually higher. In one sense, persons like me are unfortunate because even though I'm performing devotional service, still, in one way or another, I'm not convinced that it's higher pleasure. So it must be that I haven't taken it seriously properly, And so that's always the prayer that, maybe one day I can actually take it seriously and then I can get some higher taste. Of course,
getting something. Getting a little bit of taste, higher taste. That's why we're trying to give it up. There's different practices. Sadhana, Adi Bhakti, practice level. Raga Bhakti, spontaneous attachment. It's a higher level. It takes practice. Oh, higher taste will come if we're sincerely trying. Krishna will help. Vaishnavas are always there to help. And even Maya helps. Whenever you think about Maya, you get a slap. Try to enjoy the material world. Frustrated. It's also Maya's mercy. Maya means mercy also.
so in contrary to like the impersonalists, they try to artificially renounce, you know. They try to restrict the senses without getting the higher spiritual taste. So Krishna consciousness is that positive alternative, you know. We're adding Krishna, we're adding Rasaraj, we're adding beautiful Lord Krishna. So, in one sense, you know, it's very easy to love Krishna because he's the most attractive person. So,
in the material world, we're trying to imitate Krishna's loving affairs, romantic affairs. But it's a poor imitation. But still, that's all they have. They try to take pleasure in that. But by hearing from the proper source, at the proper time, proper way, about Krishna's pastimes, one can actually transcend. He realizes my vulgar imitations. I'm satisfied with that. How can I be not satisfying? No one's satisfied by that. They just don't know there's an alternative. But if they get a little taste, somehow or other, chanting, prasadam, philosophy, service, so many. There'd be nice ways to get a taste. They can give it up. Vishnu Swami used to say, if you're eating some bitter bark, that's all you got to eat. You're eating some bark of a tree. Someone comes along and gives you a beautiful plate of prasadam. You'll be very sad. You'll never eat the bark again. So some persons are very fortunate. They realize, like many devotees realize, I'll never eat meat again. They lose their days completely for eating meat. That's a product of higher knowledge. When one actually considers, what am I doing? I don't need to do this. It's cruel. It's rotting flesh. I mean, all the things we have appeal to our intelligence. And prasadam itself is so transcendently tasteful and is spiritually uplifting. So we get a higher taste. Gradually give up the lower things. Naturally, when you get up to lower or higher.
yeah, we have to add this chanting, and, you know, that's more or less along with prasadam, that's the start. And we say this often, but it's pretty simple and it's really works. So we're pretty fortunate that, Krishna gave us such a nice program, and Prabhupada's purity has kept everything intact for us in this current age, and we can eat, Shri Gaurnitai Bhagavad Prasad, and we can chant Hare Krishna, and we can get higher taste. And Krishna says that he's not revealed to, he can't be understood. Atashri Krishna Namadi, that's the beginning. And that by using the tongue in his service, he reveals himself to us. So, we're doing that. Jagannath Prabhu.
So, I have a question along the lines of what we were talking about. So I know, like Srila Rupa Goswami, he speaks against this like Pratyadhara, I think it's called, like the atonement factor, and then just Prayaschati. Yeah, thank you. It's atonement. And like Srila Prabhupada, when he was initiating the first sannyasis, he was saying like how material desires, they're still going to be there, but taking sannyas means not to act on them anymore. So I'm wondering, like, these things, they still come up, like especially devotees are dealing with the one that's most binding. That's the one that seems to linger around above the other things, like this sex desire. It might like come up in sleep or something, or like just like subtly like pops up one moment of the day, and then you want to like just kick it out of your mind, or you're like, man, why was I like thinking about that, when I was sleeping, something like that. Is there something that we can do, I guess, to like atone for the mind, and like when the mind goes here, it's like we don't want it to go there. Is there something like that we can be doing to like apologize and like to the Lord, like, God, I know this is wrong. It's just my conditioning, and I don't want my mind to go there,
Yeah, you said nice. You apologize. That sounds nice. Krishna's a person, and he knows our heart. So maybe our mind goes there, and then we're happy that it went there. Or something.
I could add a little something. Sometimes people, they say, they kind of confess some of their misdeeds or something. So yes, Krishna, that's good to confess, but not just do it again the same. Don't make any amends. So his question, what is the atonement? Atonement is make some plan how you're going to try to improve. How will you? I asked him, I said, how are you going to make sure this doesn't happen again? What's your plan? If they say they don't know, I say, well, it'll happen again. You're not making any plans. So what are the plans? Well, what do I see? Well, I was alone with such, I went alone with a certain person. Why did you do that? You're not supposed to. So I have to make it more. He has to emphasize that with himself. I have to watch out for that. And other things. I was watching movies or whatever. There's so many things that lead to lusty desires. But so then you stop doing that or minimize. If you can't stop it completely, doesn't mean you give up. Just go back and enjoy the material world. Try to reduce. How will you reduce? I'll need some help. So who can help you? Who do you know who is close enough friend who will try to help you? So in this way, make some plan. Keep some records. It's like if an athlete, he wants to improve his performance, he first of all has to know where he's at, where he's weak. And he knows how I'm going to strengthen this. I'm weak in this area. So I have to do this, 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 this. See? Practice more, chant more, Prabhupada. That's one thing you can always do, chant more. It's easy, it doesn't cost anything, but it's very helpful. So many things we can do. At least we try. Not that I had difficulty. What are you going to do? I don't know. I wasn't planning on doing anything. I'll keep chanting. That's good, that's something. Keeping going after that is something. That is actually the real program. But maybe I can improve some of my performance level. I can try to watch out for a few. Talk to some experts, some senior successful devotees. See what they suggest. They might have some good ideas for you. Like that.
Maybe after we can. So thank you so much, devotees. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.